This ethnic group is being persecuted in Pakistan. There are barely few thousands left, the Kalash people, and their practices are quite interesting.
हेलो जी, वेलकम बैक टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान। मैं इंडिया की जो ट्रैवल वीडियोस होती हैं उन पर रिएक्शन वीडियोस बनाता हूं। तो जो मैंने पिछली वीडियो बनाई थी वो थी प्रोजेक्ट शिवम यूट्यूब चैनल से वेदास के हवाले से। तो उसी चैनल से मुझे एक और वीडियो मिली है कैलाश पहाड़ के हवाले से, और इसका टाइटल था कि व्हाई नो वन कैन क्लाइंब माउंट कैलाश, कि क्यों कोई भी कैलाश पहाड़ पर नहीं चढ़ सकता। तो ये टाइटल ही ऐसा था कि इसने मुझे अपनी जानिब खींच लिया कि इतनी बड़ी मिस्ट्री इंडिया में एक पड़ी हुई है, उसका मुझे पता ही नहीं है। तो मैंने कहा कि बाकी सारी वीडियोस को छोड़ो, इसके ऊपर आते हैं और इसके ऊपर एक वीडियो बनाते हैं और सुनते हैं कि क्यों ऐसा है कि अभी तक माउंट कैलाश के ऊपर कोई नहीं चढ़ सका। जहाँ पे केटो पे लोग चढ़ गए, माउंट एवरेस्ट पे चढ़ गए, तो व्हाई नॉट माउंट कैलाश। तो इसके बारे में जानते हैं। मजीद बातें अभी नहीं करते, वीडियो के बाद में करेंगे या वीडियो के दौरान करेंगे, क्योंकि मैं बहुत ज़्यादा एक्साइटेड हो रहा हूँ इस वीडियो को सुनने के लिए। और मुझे लगता है कि ये वीडियो इंग्लिश में होगी, तो आपने अपने दिल गुर्दे थाम के बैठना है। जिसको इंग्लिश में हाथ जिसका तंग है ना थोड़ा सा, तो वो भी देखे, लेकिन हमें समझ आ जाती है जब हम इस तरह की लंबी कोई वीडियो देखते हैं मिस्ट्री, तो आपको समझ आ जाती है कि बात क्या हो रही है। तो इसलिए हम मिलकर एंजॉय करते हैं इस वीडियो को। चलिए मेरे साथ आइए और वीडियो देखिए।
Mount Kailash doesn't even come in the top 100 highest peaks of the Himalayan region. And no one can climb Mount Kailash. And there are lots of flying fringe theories about this very aspect. And if you want to know the precise and detailed truth as to why one can never climb Mount Kailash, then this video is for you. Take a good look at the snap from Google Earth. Mount Kailash, located in the remote trans-Himalayan region of Tibet, stands at 6,638 meters above sea level. It is the source for major Asian rivers including the Indus, Satluj and Brahmaputra. Nearby, at a stone's throw away, is Lake Manasarovar that lies at 4,590 meters above sea level. It's one of the world's highest freshwater lakes, surrounded by barren landscapes and snow-capped peaks. Mount Kailash and Manasarovar both are located in the Tibetan region, which is currently under Chinese occupation. This region's harsh climate and challenging terrain makes it quite difficult for the mountaineers, preserving its pristine environment. But let's come back to our question, why no one can climb Mount Kailash? It's quite simple and straight. The reason no one can climb Mount Kailash is purely because of its spiritual and religious significance in 4 different religions: Yongdrungbon, Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism. All 4 religions revere the sacred Mount Kailash for various reasons emanating from their own religious philosophy. There are a lot of fringe theories about Mount Kailash and why no one can climb it, saying that if you climb Mount Kailash, then there will be lots of time dilation, you will get older quickly and all sorts of weird stuff. Let me tell you right off the bat, all that is false. It is spiritual, it is cultural, it is religious, it is important, but there is nothing mind-bending. With all that said, let's quickly try to understand what is the significance of each of these religions and how do they revere Mount Kailash, to get a holistic understanding about this majestic peak. Or just wait a second, maybe I have to correct myself. There are certain mind-bending facts, but not what you thought of or heard of Mount Kailash. What you're going to see in this video towards the fag end definitely will bend our mind in a completely different direction that will possibly change our perception about Mount Kailash. So without any further delay, let's get started. Yongdrungbon is an ancient Tibetan religion that predates Buddhism. Centered on the nature worship and rituals and shamanism, Yongdrungbon is one of the ancient religions in the Indian subcontinent. In Yongdrungbon, the Mount Kailash is considered as the spiritual center of the universe. It is believed to be the seat of the sky god Sipaiman and the location of Tagzig Olmo Lung Ring. In simple words, Yongdrungbon reveres Mount Kailash as the abode of their highest deity. It's the homeland of the highest deity in the religion of Yongdrungbon. That's briefly the significance of Mount Kailash in Yongdrungbon. Now let's briefly understand the rituals and the practices in this religion that are centered around Mount Kailash. Broadly, there are 3 different rituals or traditions associated with Mount Kailash in Yongdrungbon. It is the parikrama or kora as it's called, the circumambulation around Mount Kailash or the pradakshina of Mount Kailash. Yongdrungbon practitioners perform a counterclockwise parikrama of Mount Kailash. This ritual aligns with the Bon's unique spiritual traditions and is believed to connect practitioners with their ancient heritage and spiritual roots. That's one ritual. Second one is the ceremonial offering offerings. Various offerings, including incense, food, and symbolic items that are made to deities and spirits associated with Mount Kailash, are offered as a ritual at the foot of the Mount Kailash. These rituals are meant to honor the deities, seek their blessings, and maintain harmony between the physical and the spiritual worlds. That's what Yongdrung Bon practitioners believe. And third one is the charm dance. In some Bon monasteries near Mount Kailash, there is a specific traditional format of dance called as charm dance. It's a ritual dance, so to speak. It is performed as an act of meditation by playing the stories associated with Mount Kailash in Yongdrung Bon religion. Yongdrung Bon is before Buddhism. That is the antiquity of this tradition. And philosophically, Yongdrung Bon is quite close to Vajrayana format of Buddhism. A quick side note is, if you just observe the charm dance with all the vibrant face masks and lots of vivid decoration, it reflects the Kala Bhairava located in Kathmandu of Nepal. There is a streak of cultural similarity in Yongdrung Bon and in the culture of Nepal, but that's for another day. Let's get back to Mount Kailash. Now coming to Jaina Dharma. In Jainism, Mount Kailash is known as Ashtapada, revered as the site where the first Tirthankara, Sri Rishabhadeva, attained nirvana or liberation. It is also seen as a symbolic representation of Meru Parvatam, the cosmic mountain that is central to the Jain cosmology. It represents the center of the universe that reflects the spiritual heights that one should attain in his or her life in Jainism. Now coming to the rituals associated with Mount Kailash in Jaina Dharma are: number one, the Kailash Yatra. People who observe Jainism, they undertake a sacred journey to Mount Kailash.
मैंने सुना हुआ है इसके बारे में.
Spiritual penance and devotion. And two is the Parikrama or circumambulation. Devotees perform Parikrama by walking around Mount Kailash, which is believed to purify their karma and bring spiritual merit, reflecting deep reverence for the sacred site. And then Dhyana, most important of all. Jains engage in focused meditation and recitation of prayers dedicated to Lord Sri Rishabhadeva, seeking to align their souls with the teachings of the great Tirthankara. And then Upavas, fasting. Many Jains observe fasting during their pilgrimage, practicing the self-discipline when they are around Mount Kailash. And lastly, the ritual offerings. Symbolic offerings such as fruits, flowers, etc. made at sacred spots around Mount Kailash or Ashtapada.
Buddhism के बड़ा close है.
So these are the rituals in Jaina Dharma associated with Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash holds deep significance in Buddhism, symbolizing Mount Meru, the universe's spiritual center. It is believed to be the abode of Chakrasambhara, who represents the ultimate bliss, and his consort Vajra Yogini, the embodiment of wisdom and compassion. In Buddhism, particularly in Vajrayana Buddhism, these two deities, Chakrasambhara and Vajra Yogini, are the supreme deities in the tantric practices. Chakrasambhara and Vajra Yogini are reminiscent of the Yab-Yum philosophy of the Vajrayana Buddhism. It appears like a sexual union between Chakrasambhara and Vajra Yogini, but there is a very deep spiritual and philosophical significance behind that. Yab-Yum, or the father-mother union. This is a symbolic representation of the union of wisdom and compassion, depicted as a male deity embracing the female deity, who are Chakrasambhara and Vajra Yogini. And I repeat, even though it appears like a sexual union between the male deity and the female deity, it is highly revered and respected as that very union between our father and mother, because of which the entire nature is born. And Mount Kailash is revered as the abode of this duo, Chakrasambhara and Vajra Yogini, in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. Coming to the rituals that the followers of Buddhism observe with Mount Kailash are the most important of all: the yatra, or the pilgrimage. Buddhists undertake a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, viewing it as a path to enlightenment and a means to purify the negative karma accumulated over lifetimes. And then taking a pradakshina or a parikrama around Mount Kailash is also very important in Buddhism with respect to Mount Kailash. People perform pradakshina to Mount Kailash in a clockwise direction and believe to erase sins, bring spiritual merit, and draw closer to spiritual awakening in Buddhism. That's how important is Mount Kailash in Buddhism. And there is also a very interesting and very difficult task that they undertake during this parikrama, that is prostrations. So while circumambulating, some Buddhists perform full body prostrations along the 52-kilometer route, symbolizing humility, devotion, and surrender of ego. Then also the aspects like meditation and mantra chanting, rituals, ceremonial offerings, all this also are observed in Buddhism with respect to the majestic Mount Kailash. Let me tell you one thing right off the bat. Once you start learning these aspects about Buddhism, it would be quite surprising and interesting at the same time, because The current format of Buddhism is highly politicized, highly adulterated with strong political views, and it is nowhere near to the actual Buddhist philosophies. Nowhere near to it. It is just a political and caste spaghetti that is misleading people away from the actual core Buddhist philosophies. We'll talk about it sometime in detail, but for now, let us stick to Mount Kailash. So these are the rituals and the significance in Bauddha Dharma about Mount Kailash. In Hinduism, Mount Kailash, well, I don't have to say a word about it. It is revered as the earthly abode of Lord Shiva and Ma Parvati. It is the ultimate destination, just like Vaikuntham or Kailasam. One of these two are revered as the ultimate destinations for each and every living thing on this planet. And of course, the rituals are quite known to all of us, like people undertake the yatra of Kailash and Manasarovar yatra, parikrama of Mount Kailash, and all these things. So in context of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, we will try to understand Mount Kailash in slightly different way. Let us turn towards our great treasure of ancient scriptures, what they say about Mount Kailash. Well, Ramayanam, Mahabharatam, they mentioned Mount Kailash at length. And don't even ask about the 18 Puranas. Almost all the Puranas have this entire story of Parvati Kalyanam right from Mount Kailash up until down south in Tamil Nadu. The entire geographical region is elaborated in all the 18 Puranas in context of Parvati Kalyanam. So to keep it simple, let us turn towards the most ancient reference about Mount Kailash that we could possibly have. One of the oldest reference that I could find out about Mount Kailash is from Sri Ramayana. Here is a conversation between Viswamitra Maharshi and Bhagwan Sri Ram and his brother Lakshmana Swami. Basically here the context is that Viswamitra Maharshi is teaching Bhagwan Sri Ram and Lakshmana Swami about the history of Ayodhya. And here is how it goes. Kailasa parvate Rama manasa nirmitam saraha brahmana narasardula tenedam manasam saraha. And the translation is Rama on the Mount Kailash, Brahma created a lake out of his consciousness or manas, hence called as Manasarovar, is a lake present on Mount Kailash. These are the words of Viswamitra Maharshi towards Bhagwan Sri Ram. And then Viswamitra Maharshi continues saying the following. Tasmat susrava sarasah sayodhyam upaguhate sarah pravritta sarayuhu punya brahma suraschuta. Tasmat susrava sarasah sayodhyam upaguhate sarah pravritta sarayuhu punya brahma suraschuta. A river was born out of that Manasarovar and hence called Sarayu. This river Sarayu is flowing through the banks of your kingdom Ayodhya. These are the words of Viswamitra Maharshi to Bhagwan Sri Ram in the Balakanda 23rd Sarga of Sri Ramayana. Okay, it is written in Sri Ramayanam that the river Sarayu in Ayodhya originated from Manasarovar in Mount Kailash. Let us try to understand this from a geographic standpoint. So let's have a quick look at this landscape from Google Earth. There is Mount Kailash and you have Manasarovar and the distance is barely a few kilometers. And first of all, there is no surprise that this trans-Himalayan region is feeding a lot of rivers like Indus, Brahmaputra, Sutlej. So if Sri Ramayanam says that a river originated from Manasarovar, that should not be a surprise because that's how rivers are fed in the northern part of India. Majority of the rivers are Himalayan fed. So from another angle, there is Mount Kailash, here is Manasarovar, and then just beside Manasarovar, you have another lake called as Rakshasthal. Rakshasthal is a saltwater lake and Manasarovar is a freshwater lake. Basically, Rakshasthal is seen as a place of negative energy built for Rakshas or Danavas or Asuras. And Manasarovar is revered as Devasaras, full of positive spiritual energy, so on and so forth. So this is how this entire landscape is revered. The Mount Kailash, Manasarovar and the Rakshasthal as well. But people don't take pilgrimage to Rakshasthal, it's only Manasarovar and Mount Kailash. Now let us get back to the reference about Mount Kailash and Manasarovar and the river Sarayu, how it originated from Manasarovar. Just take a look at the map. In the straight line of sight, there is Manasarovar, and from Ayodhya, it is barely 500 kilometers away. So first of all, it is nothing surprising for a river to originate from this place, from Manasarovar, as Ramayanam says, and to be called as Sarayu in Ayodhya. Secondly, I don't have to prove it because it is a well-known fact. Just dig deeper into it and you'll get to know the river that originated from Manasarovar. In fact, that specific trans-Himalayan region was called as Gaghara, Karnali, Mamcha Tsangpo in Tibet, Sarayu, finally when it reaches famous Ayodhya. It is one river with multiple names as it progresses from Manas Sarovar to Ayodhya. So in Ayodhya it is called as Sarayu. The place where it has originated is called as Karnali, and in Tibetan language they call Mamchat Sangpo. So what Sri Ramayanam says that a river originated from Manas Sarovar is flowing by Ayodhya is very much correct, and hence the name Sarayu, since it originated from Sarovar. So quite an interesting hidden detail about geography and history emanating from Sri Ramayana. So this is what I often say. Reading Sri Ramayanam from a devotional perspective and spiritual perspective is totally fine. That's each to your own. But these are the epics. These are the itihasas that document our history. So if someone asks the simple commonsensical question, why is Sarayu called as Sarayu? Well, the answer is, since Sarayu originated from Sarovar, the Manas Sarovar, hence it is called as Sarayu. And that is what our itihasa, Sri Ramayanam, tells us. So stop being secular. Read your own scriptures. Rest my case. Now let me take you to even more fascinating aspects about Mount Kailash. Take a good look at this landscape. There is Mount Kailash and Manas Sarovar. Now all these bluish green spots that you see are pockets of lakes that are nested in the Himalayan region between India and mostly Tibet. Some or many of these water bodies and peaks have a lot of spiritual and cultural significance. Not everything that we know today, most of them we would have lost, but a good amount of them do survive. I'll come to a similar example towards the end of this video, but let me take you through a different direction in the next couple of minutes. Human civilization has been thriving in this region since many thousands of years. And now let's turn our attention to a different geographical region or a sub-geographical region in this larger trans-Himalayan range. There is Mount Kailash, and here you have Sri Amarnath, and then quite close to Amarnath, few hundreds of kilometers away, is Chitral. This region is in Pakistan and is of our interest for the next couple of minutes.
Chitral.
Remember the location of Chitral. It is very close to Amarnath and obviously to Mount Kailash and the broader Himalayan region, but specifically close to Amarnath. And
मैं गया हूँ चित्राल में.
why I asked for that. So that is Chitral, completely surrounded by the mountains. It is a valley settlement. It's a district with a couple of villages in it. And there is a very interesting ethnic group of people that live in this region of Chitral.
Kailash
They
people.
are the Kalash people.
छोटा सा
Kalash people
कबीला
are
है.
one of the oldest indigenous communities in the Indian subcontinent, and their history, it potentially stretches back thousands of years. Number one, they are polytheistic and nature worshippers. And most important thing is, the deities that they worship, it's a mix of animism, shamanism and Hinduism together. They worship even the Rig Vedic deities like Indra, Yama and Varuna. Unfortunately and obviously, this ethnic group is being persecuted in Pakistan. There are barely few thousands left, the Kalash people. And their practices are quite interesting. Like I said, it's a mix of animism, shamanism and Hinduism, all three together. And most importantly, the antiquity of this ethnic group is quite interesting. They observe certain practices right from the Rig Vedic times, which modern Hinduism or the current format of Hinduism itself, majority of us don't even know. Because Indra is a deity from the Rig Vedic times. And this ethnic group, they do worship Indra as well, while the mainstream Hinduism almost never does. Unfortunately, we don't know what is the heritage of our own Vedas. But anyway, all that's for another day. Let's come back to the Kalash people and the context of Mount Kailash. And the god, one of the supreme deities of Kalash people is Mahan Deo. Understand the sensitivity and similarity here. It is not Mahadev, it is Mahan Deo. And here what you're seeing is the temple of Mahan Deo for the Kalash people. It's like a prehistoric construction, right? That's how the practices of Kalash people are also. Animal sacrifices at this temple for Mahandev is a very important and common practice in the Kalash people. Mahandev is considered as a powerful and central god associated with creation of the natural world. The Kalash people honor Mahandev in various rituals, festivals, prayers, seeking his protection and blessings for fertility, harvest and overall well-being. He is one of the many deities, but definitely a very important one in their polytheistic pantheon that the Kalash people venerate, reflecting their deep connection to nature and the spiritual forces they believe that governs their lives. So if I have to put it in simple words, Kalash people are like people in a time capsule that are following elements of ancient Vedic Hinduism, which is very close to nature worship, or maybe I should correct myself, it is nothing but nature worship, the Vedic Hinduism. And these people, Kalash people, are still continuing that practice. And also remember why I asked to remember the location of of Chitral. It is just very close to Amarnath and of course to Mount Kailash as well. In fact, Kailash is a surname in this ethnic group. People have this word Kailash, Kailash, in their surname. So like this, the ethnic group Kalash people have a very close streak of connection, a cultural continuity and a deep heritage with the entire region of Kailash and with Mahandev in their spiritual and cultural practices, unfortunately being persecuted in Pakistan. Hope this group would be able to continue growing and thriving in their own right. Coming back to this landscape which I just showed a couple of minutes ago, so this bluish green spots, just like the example of Kalash people, there could be a lot of local settlements or legends associated with these lakes, which are both geographic and historic, which we might not know. One example I gave from Sri Ramayanam about how Mount Kailash, Manasarovar and Sarayu in Ayodhya are related to each other. Like this landscape is called as Devabhumi for a reason. And most importantly, in Ramayanam, it is mentioned that Manasarovar is situated in Kailash, or rather on the Kailash. So it's not just about one peak, which we call today as Mount Kailash, but the entire region is revered as Kailash. Because generally lakes do not change their course, rivers do. So it's not that one peak, which we call today as Mount Kailash, is Kailash alone. Rather, this entire region is revered as Kailash. That's for sure. So coming back to the question where we all started, well, with such a high reverence and spiritual and cultural significance, if people are holding Mount Kailash dear to them and their culture and religion, everything, do you think it is right to climb Mount Kailash? Definitely not, and that is the reason the Chinese government, Indian government and Tibetan government, even though there is no policy as such, generally you'll never get a permit to ascend Mount Kailash, to protect the sentiments of the people, to protect the beliefs of the people of this region, and by extension whole of Bharat. And this is not just one peak. There are at least 8 to 10 peaks in my knowledge that are forbidden to climb because of its deep spiritual and cultural significance. And Machapuchare is another example and is also revered as the abode of Lord Shiva and Ma Parvati. And this mountain is located in the Annapurna ranges. Like this, the list goes on, but now you have a relatively better understanding, I suppose, about Mount Kailash, its cultural and spiritual significance in Bharat, in Sanatana Dharma, in Jaina Dharma, Bauddha Dharma, Yungdrungbon, and also how this mountain, Kailash, have still an ethnic group, one we know of, the Kalash people, and we don't know still how many, or at least in the past how many were there, but you get the point. So that is in brief about Mount Kailash and Manasarovar. As always, thanks for watching.
तो ये थी हमारी आज की वीडियो कि क्यों कोई बंदा कैलाश पहाड़ पे नहीं चढ़ सकता। एक्चुअली जैसे वीडियो ख़त्म हुई तो मुझे छींक आ गई थी, तो मैं थोड़ा सा वीडियो बंद करके उठाऊं, तो मैंने कहा वापस आके बात करते हैं। अच्छा, जो हमारा पहला क्वेश्चन था, पहले हम कंक्लूजन पे आते हैं कि उन्होंने बताया कि क्यों कोई बंदा इस कैलाश पहाड़ पे नहीं चढ़ सकता। वजह ये कि जैसे 4 धर्म उन्होंने बताया कि हिंदुइज़्म, जैनिज़्म, उसके अलावा बुद्धिज़्म और जो चौथा था मुझे उसका नाम याद नहीं आ रहा, उन सब की जो है ना अकीदतें जुड़ी हुई हैं इस पहाड़ के साथ, जिसकी वजह से ये समझते हैं कि इस वजह से लोग इस पहाड़ के ऊपर चढ़ना पसंद नहीं करते, इसको सर करना पसंद नहीं करते। अदरवाइज ऐसी कोई पॉलिसी नहीं है कि यहाँ पे कोई नहीं जा सकता, जाने के लिए कोई लोग जा भी सकते हैं। अच्छा, ये तो एक इनका पर्सपेक्टिव था, ख़ास तौर पे इसको कह सकते हैं कि रिलीजियस पर्सपेक्टिव था, जो इन्होंने बताया कि इस वजह से इस पे नहीं लोग चढ़ते। आप लोगों ने मुझे ये बताना है कि लोग इसकी यात्रा के लिए जाते हैं, मानस सरोवर के लिए जाते हैं या कैलाश यात्रा के लिए जाते हैं, इनमें से जो सबसे अमेजिंग यात्रा है या दोनों बहुत मज़े की यात्रा है, तो आपने मुझे 2 अच्छी कोई वीडियोस ना ढूंढ के मुझे कमेंट में बतानी है कि इस वीडियो के ऊपर आप रिएक्ट करें। कोशिश करें बहुत लंबी वीडियो ना हो, लेकिन इंटरेस्टिंग सी वीडियो ढूंढ के आपने मुझे बतानी है, क्योंकि मैं इसके बारे में जानना चाहता हूँ। क्योंकि ये जो रिलीजियस यात्रा होती है ना, ये मुझे बड़ी पसंद होती है, क्योंकि वो सारी एक्टिविटी देखने को मिलती है, लोगों के जज्बात जुड़े होते हैं साथ में। एक तो ये चीज़ होगी, फिर एंड पे बात हुई थी कैलाश पीपल की, विच इज़ एक कबीला, एक छोटा सा कबीला है चित्राल में। चित्राल एक्चुअली एक बड़ा कह लें शहर है, उसके अंदर ये छोटा सा कबीला है पहाड़ों के बीच में, कैलाश, जो बड़ा कलरफुल सा और बड़ा एक डिफरेंट किस्म के एथनिक एक ग्रुप है, जिसकी वजह से पाकिस्तानी लोग भी जाते हैं वहाँ पे। जब इनका फेस्टिवल्स होते हैं, इनके साल में 3 फेस्टिवल्स होते हैं आई थिंक, तो उनमें से एक बड़ा जो गर्मियों में होता है, तो लोग ख़ास तौर पे पाकिस्तान के लोग वहाँ पे जाते हैं और उनको ज्वाइन करते हैं। उनकी जो खुशियाँ होती हैं, उनकी जो रिचुअल्स होते हैं, उनके अंदर शिरकत करते हैं लोग, वहाँ पे देखते हैं। ऑब्जर्व करते हैं, क्योंकि वो डिफरेंट एक एथनिक ग्रुप है लोकल पाकिस्तानियों के लिए, तो लोग जाते हैं। तो मैं भी वहाँ पे गया हूँ, मैंने देखा हुआ उनको वहाँ पे रह के। तो यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी चीज़ बढ़ाई गई है कि पाकिस्तान में उनकी क्या एक वर्ड यूज़ किया गया कि उनकी क्लेंजिंग चल रही है या उनको ख़त्म किया जा रहा है पाकिस्तान में। तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है। एक ही दफ़ा हुआ है, आज से 15-20 साल पहले की बात है, जब इस पूरे रीजन के अंदर पाकिस्तान, आपको पता है कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर बुरे दिन चल रहे थे। इधर से बॉर्डर पार से भी कुछ फोर्सेस थी, और पाकिस्तान, पूरे पाकिस्तान के अंदर बहुत एक किस्म का, बस अब उसका बंदा याद भी नहीं करना चाहता उसको कि कैसे लोगों को कीड़े मकोड़ों की तरह मारा जा रहा था। मतलब जगह जगह पे बम फट रहे थे, सारा कुछ ना। तो उसमें सिर्फ ये जगह नहीं, पाकिस्तान का इवन लाहौर, रावलपिंडी, कौन सी जगह की बात करें जहाँ जो डैमेज नहीं हुआ, ये सारी चीज़ें रिकॉर्ड पे हैं। तो उस दौर के बीच में कुछ ग्रुप्स के ने इन लोगों पे भी, जैसे होता है ना कि अपना गुस्सा निकालना होता है या इस चीज़ों को डिस्ट्रॉय करने की कोशिश की होती है, तो इनके साथ ये हुआ था। ये पार्ट ऑफ हिस्ट्री है। बट उसके बाद यानी कह लो कि 15-20 साल अगर पिछले मैं याद करूं तो कोई भी ऐसी बात याद नहीं आती, बल्कि हर दफ़ा हर साल जब जब इनके फेस्टिवल्स होते हैं, लाहौर, रावलपिंडी, कराची, इधर उधर से लोग स्पेशली इनके इन फेस्टिवल्स में शिरकत करने के लिए जाते हैं। और बड़े कलरफुल से फेस्टिवल होते हैं। इनके लोग यहाँ पे नीचे इस्लामाबाद, रावलपिंडी, इधर उधर यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में भी पढ़ रहे हैं, और मतलब हर जगह पे बात की जाती है कि इस ग्रुप को मतलब इनका इस ग्रुप को सरवाइव करना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये बहुत थोड़े नंबर में है। तो हर कोई चाहता है कि ये एक डिफरेंट ग्रुप पाकिस्तान में रहता है, तो इनको भी रहना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये भी इस मुल्क की खूबसूरती है। खैर, ये एक छोटी सी क्लैरिफिकेशन थी। बाकी चीज़ें तो सारी चीज़ें इंटरनेट पे रिसर्च करने से पता चल जाते हैं, मिल जाती हैं। एक वीडियो, एक अच्छी वीडियो थी। वीडियो में एक रिलीजियस पर्सपेक्टिव को लेकर चली है, लेकिन इसमें काफ़ी इंफॉर्मेशन से भरी हुई वीडियो थी। तो मज़ा आया। इस तरह की और वीडियो भी आपकी नज़र में हो तो मुझे रिकमेंड ज़रूर कीजिएगा। ज़्यादा बातें नहीं करते क्योंकि वीडियो पहले भी बहुत लंबी हो गई है। अभी मैं आपसे इजाज़त चाहता हूँ। मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में, मज़े की वीडियो में। तब तक के लिए बाय बाय।